The Hook, a dying princess. The battlefield in space was silent now, silent but heavy with death. Broken ships floated like graves among the stars. Fire still burned on the wreckage, and drifting bodies of soldiers moved slowly in the cold dark. A war had ended here, but not with peace. Only with destruction. A lone human warrior moved through the ruins. His armor cracked, his weapon useless, his body weak but his spirit unbroken. He searched not for treasure, not for victory, but for survivors, because something inside him refused to leave without knowing if life still breathed in this graveyard of steel. Then he saw it. A small escape pod half buried in wreckage. Smoke curled from its edges. The glass cracked but not broken. He forced the hatch open with trembling hands, and what he saw inside made him freeze. It was no human, no friend. It was an alien, and not just any alien. She was royalty. Her clothes torn but still marked with the symbols of her empire. The feared empire that had burned cities. The empire every human hated. The empire that had sworn to destroy Earth, and yet, here lay their princess. Pale, bleeding, and dying. The warrior's heart pounded. His first thought was to leave her. Why save the blood of an enemy? Why risk everything for the daughter of those who had killed his brothers in arms? Yet as he looked closer, he saw her chest rise and fall. Weak, fragile, like a candle almost out. He saw her eyes half open, filled not with hatred but with fear. She was not a monster in that moment. She was just a dying girl. He searched the pod for medical kits, for alien healing tools, but they were broken. The blood that flowed from her wounds was strange. Darker than human blood, it shimmered in the dim light. No human medicine could save her. No machine he carried could help, and the warrior knew she would die within minutes. He clenched his fists, torn between duty and something deeper. He thought of his friends who had fallen. He thought of his home, his people, and then he thought of the face before him. Weak, helpless, alone, even if she was his enemy. Did she deserve to die here in the dark, forgotten by her own people? The answer came not from reason but from instinct. His hand moved to the blade at his side, not to strike her down but to cut his own arm. Blood welled up bright red against the cold steel. He pressed his bleeding arm to her lips, whispering words she could not understand. Live, just live. At first nothing happened. Her body did not move, her breathing did not change. Her lips touched the blood but did not drink. The warrior felt foolish, desperate, yet he did not stop. He let the drops fall into her mouth. He let the warmth of his life touch hers, and then it began. Her chest shuddered, her body arched. Her wounds glowed faintly as if something impossible stirred inside. Her skin, pale as snow moments before, now pulsed with a faint light. Her eyes snapped open, glowing with a strange silver fire. The warrior stumbled back, heart racing. What had he done? What force had he awakened? The princess gasped. Her voice weak but filled with shock, she stared at him not with hatred but confusion, as if she could feel something new inside her, as if his blood had not only kept her alive but changed her. And in that moment the warrior realized something that froze him to the core. This was no simple rescue, no simple act of mercy. This was the beginning of something far greater, something neither his people nor hers would ever understand. The silence of the battlefield seemed to press closer, as if the stars themselves waited to see what would happen next. The warrior's wound still bled. His strength drained, but his eyes never left hers, because he knew the impossible truth. His blood now flowed inside a princess of the enemy empire, their lives bound by a choice that defied reason, a choice that might cost him everything, or change everything forever. The princess's lips parted, words in her alien tongue spilling out, weak and trembling though he could not understand them. He felt their meaning in his chest. She was asking why. Why would he save her? Why would he give his life to someone meant to be his enemy? The warrior had no answer, only silence, only the weight of what he had done. Her glowing eyes softened. Her hand lifted with trembling strength, touching his arm, not in command, not in threat, but in gratitude. And in that touch the warrior felt something impossible. He felt her heartbeat echoing inside his own, as if their blood now carried the same rhythm. The same life. The stars outside burned cold and distant, but inside that shattered pod, in the quiet after-war, something new was born, something fragile, dangerous, and unexplainable. The warrior did not know it yet. The princess did not understand it either. But the moment he gave his blood, the universe had shifted, two enemies had been bound, and what followed would defy all logic. And so the hook was set. The silence of space carried their secret, and somewhere in the shadows destiny began to move, waiting for the day when the truth of this bond would shake both their worlds. The impossible bond. The human warrior sat in silence, His breath heavy, his wound still bleeding, yet his eyes never left the alien princess. She lay on the floor of the cracked pod, her body trembling, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the shadows, her breathing stronger now than before, stronger because of him. She should have been his enemy. She should have been a symbol of everything he had fought against, yet she was alive because his blood ran inside her, and as he looked at her, he felt something he could not explain, a strange rhythm inside his chest as if her heartbeat was echoing his own. The princess slowly raised her head, her hair falling over her face, her lips parting as if to speak. The words that came out were alien, strange, sharp like the sound of broken glass. He could not understand them, but he felt them deep inside, as if her voice touched not just his ears but his very soul. He pressed his hand against his chest, confused. Every beat of his heart seemed to match hers. When she gasped, he felt it in his lungs. When she shivered, his skin grew cold. The bond was real, and it was impossible. The princess looked at him with suspicion, her silver eyes narrowing. She could feel it too. She could sense the pulse of his life inside her. She did not know if it was curse or miracle, but she knew one thing. She was alive because of this human, a warrior of the race her people called weak, a race her empire had sworn to destroy. For the first time in her life, she was forced to see a human not as prey, not as an enemy but as something else, something unknown. The warrior leaned against the broken wall of the pod, his voice low, his words soft. "I do not know why I saved you," he whispered. Though he knew she could not understand his language, still his voice carried something deeper than words, a meaning she somehow felt in her bones. The princess tilted her head, studying him, and then her lips curved with something almost like a smile. Not of joy, but of disbelief. She too did not know why he had chosen to bleed for her. She too did not know what fate had placed them in this broken place. Together, but time was not their ally outside the wreckage. The void was alive with search beacons. Faint lights moved in the distance, ships scanning the battlefield. Both human and alien patrols hunted for survivors, and if either side found them here, there would be no mercy. The warrior's eyes narrowed. He could not let her fall into their hands. Not yet. Not while this strange bond was still a mystery, not while his blood still flowed in her veins. He stood weak but determined, reaching down to lift her. At first she resisted, her pride sharp, her hand striking his arm with a hiss, but the moment she touched him she froze, because the bond sang between them again. Her strength was his strength, his pain was her pain. She realized she could not walk without him. She realized she could not fight without him, and with a reluctant nod, she allowed him to carry her into the darkness of the wreckage, away from the searching lights. As they moved, something stranger still began to happen. The warrior stumbled once, his wound slowing him, and in that instant she felt a burning pain in her own arm. Her body reacted, her blood, now mixed with his, responded, and the wound on his arm began to close faster, the flesh knitting together as if her body was helping heal him. She gasped, the silver glow in her veins flashing brighter. Their bond was no longer just one-sided. It was not only his blood saving her, but her blood now protecting him. The warrior noticed it too, his eyes widening. He touched his arm and felt the skin whole, the bleeding stopped, the pain fading. "What are we?" he whispered, his voice shaking. The princess stared at her glowing hands. She did not answer, but deep inside she knew. This was no accident, this was no trick. This was something far greater, something that had never existed between human and alien before. They found shelter in the shadow of a broken battleship, its hull split wide open. Inside, the wreckage was cold and silent, but hidden from patrols. Here they could breathe, here they could think. The warrior set her down gently, his eyes always watching, his mind racing. If either army discovered this bond, they would be hunted, feared, destroyed, because no one would allow such a thing to exist. The princess felt the same fear. She knew her empire would call her impure, a disgrace, a danger to their power, and the humans would see her as a weapon, an abomination, something to kill before it grew too strong. Yet as she sat there, her eyes locked with his, and for the first time in her life, she wondered if fate had given her something her people had never known. Not power, not bloodlines, not empire, but connection, a bond that ignored race and hatred, a bond that tied her life to a human warrior. The silence between them was not empty. It was heavy, full of unspoken words, full of questions neither of them could answer. The warrior clenched his fists, his body weak but his will unbroken. "If we are hunted, we will run," he whispered, more to himself than her. "If we are cornered, we will fight. But I will not let you die again." The princess tilted her head, his voice strange yet powerful. And though she did not understand the words, she understood the meaning. She understood the fire in his eyes, and for the first time she believed him. Their bond was impossible. Their bond was dangerous, yet their bond was real. And as the stars burned cold outside, both of them knew the truth. The war was not over, but the real story had just begun. And somewhere in the distance, soldiers of both races closed in, searching, hunting, never knowing that the greatest secret of the war was already alive, hidden in the wreckage, pulsing with human blood and alien fire, waiting to be unleashed. The enemy's hunt the night of space never rested. The battlefield that once roared with fire was now silent, but silence did not mean safety. In the distance, lights flickered. Patrol ships moved through the wreckage like wolves, sniffing for prey, scanning for survivors, searching for secrets. Inside the hollowed shell of a broken warship, the human warrior and the alien princess sat in the shadows, their breaths low, their hearts uneasy. They knew the hunt had begun. They knew they were the prey. The princess pressed her hand against the wall, her veins glowing faint silver. The bond inside her pulsed, her eyes narrowing. She could sense them. She could feel soldiers moving through the wreckage far away. As if her new blood had sharpened her instincts, she whispered in her alien tongue. The warrior could not understand, but the fear in her eyes told him enough. The humans were coming, the aliens were coming. Both sides wanted the same thing. Her life to the humans, she was a danger. A weapon too dangerous to exist. To the aliens, she was corrupted, tainted by human blood, no longer pure, no longer their perfect symbol. To both, she was a problem to erase, not a life to protect. The warrior clenched his fists. He had fought many battles, but this one was different. This one was not for victory, not for honor. This was survival, his and hers, and something told him their bond would not survive capture. Above them, the wreckage shook. The sound of boots echoed. The beam of flashlights cut through the cracks. Voices in human language shouted commands. Search every chamber. Leave nothing unchecked. The warrior froze, pressing the princess closer into the shadows, his hand over her mouth to silence her breath. She did not resist, her glowing eyes fixed on the light, and for the first time he saw not only fear but anger, a deep burning anger that made her seem less like a victim and more like a queen denied her throne. The footsteps passed, fading, but only for a moment, because then another sound grew, harsh, guttural, alien. A different patrol had arrived. The soldiers of her own empire, their armor black, their weapons humming with deadly energy, their voices sharp. The princess must be found. Alive if possible, but if corrupted, destroy her. The warrior felt her flinch, her hands tightening around his arm. The words of her own people cut deeper than blades. To them she was not a daughter, not a leader. She was already a traitor for carrying human blood. The hunter had become the hunted, and the hunted were hunted by all. The warrior pulled her deeper into the wreckage, crawling through narrow passages, broken wires hanging like vines, sparks falling in the dark, each sound threatening to reveal them, each heartbeat loud as thunder. The princess struggled, weak but growing stronger. She could feel the warrior's exhaustion, the bond between them making his pain hers, his breath hers, and she knew he could not carry her forever. She had to move, she had to fight. They reached a chamber, wide and open, the remains of a hangar bay, broken fighters scattered like bones. Here the silence ended, because the hunters had found their trail. Human voices from one side, alien voices from the other, beams of light crossing through the dark. Weapons raised, every exit cut off. The warrior stood tall, his weapon broken but his resolve sharp. He pushed the princess behind him, ready to fight until death. He knew he could not win, but he would not let them take her. The princess, however, did not stay behind. The glow in her veins spread across her skin. Her wounds had healed. Her strength burned brighter than before. She stepped forward, her silver eyes blazing, the bond awakening something in her blood, something new, something terrifying. The first human soldier shouted, firing his rifle. The shot blazed across the hangar, but it never reached the warrior because the princess raised her hand, and the energy dissolved into sparks, vanishing into the air as if swallowed by invisible fire. The soldiers froze, their eyes wide, their voices trembling. What is she? Even her own alien soldiers hesitated, whispering to each other, confused, afraid. The princess should not have had this power. No member of her bloodline had ever commanded such force. The warrior turned to her, shock in his eyes. He had given his blood to save her, but now it seemed his blood had done more than save. It had transformed. It had awakened something inside her that defied all laws of nature. She looked back at him, and for a moment, he thought she might turn that power on him too. But then she reached for his hand, pulling him close, her voice sharp, commanding. Though he could not understand her words, he felt their meaning. Run with me. Together they moved, dodging fire, slipping through shadows, her power shielding them, his strength guiding them. And though the hunters followed, none dared step too close, because the impossible bond between human and alien had birthed something unknown, something both sides feared. By the time they vanished into the wreckage, the hangar bay was silent. Soldiers from both armies staring at the shadows they left behind, shaken, afraid, whispering a single truth. The princess lived, but she was no longer theirs. In the distance, alarms echoed. Orders spread across fleets. Find them, capture them, kill them if necessary. The hunt was no longer just patrols. It was war again. War for two lives bound by blood. The warrior and the princess did not look back. Their breaths heavy, their bond stronger. They knew the truth now. They were not just running. They were being hunted by everyone. And the galaxy would not rest until they were found. And yet, as they disappeared into the ruins of war, the princess's glowing eyes met the warrior's steady gaze. And for the first time, she did not feel like prey. She felt like something else, something greater, something born of the impossible. The hunt had begun, but the hunters did not know. The prey they chased might become the very storm that would swallow them all. Powers awaken. The ruins of the battlefield stretched endless. Broken ships like mountains of steel, twisted corridors like caves of the dead. The warrior and the princess moved through this graveyard with caution, every step heavy with silence, every shadow a threat. The princess walked without stumbling now, her body no longer weak, her wounds gone as if they never existed. Her silver eyes glowed faint in the dark, and the warrior could not stop staring. Because the more time passed, the more she seemed less like a survivor and more like something new, something born of his blood and her own. He pressed his hand against the scar on his arm where he had cut himself to save her. It should have hurt, it should have burned, but instead, he felt warmth there as if her life still flowed through it. As if the bond refused to close when she breathed, he felt it in his chest. When she blinked, he felt his heart skip. The connection was no longer faint. It was strong, alive, undeniable. The princess stopped suddenly, her hand raised, her veins glowing brighter. The warrior froze, following her gaze in the shadows of a broken hallway. A drone floated, a small machine of war, scanning for survivors, its red eye flashing, its weapon charged. Before he could raise his broken blade, the princess stepped forward, her fingers curling into a fist. The drone shuddered in midair, its red eye flickering, sparks bursting from its metal body, and then with a sharp sound it collapsed into pieces, crashing lifeless to the ground. The warrior's eyes widened, his breath caught. She had not touched it, she had not fired a weapon. She had destroyed it with nothing but will. The princess stared at her hands, trembling, her face pale with shock. Even she did not know what she had done. Even she did not understand the power that now burned inside her veins. They moved deeper into the wreckage, and again, the strange powers showed themselves. A wall that would not move bent under her touch. Fire that burned too close vanished when she raised her hand. Wounds that reopened on the warrior's side closed the moment she pressed her palm against his chest. Each act left her shaking. Each use of power stole her breath. But each time she recovered faster, stronger, as if the more she used it, the more it became part of her. The warrior did not know if this was a gift or a curse. His blood had saved her, but now it was shaping her, changing her into something her people had never seen, something the galaxy might fear even more than before. And worse, he could feel the cost, because every time her power flared, his body weakened, his breath grew heavy, his vision blurred. It was as if the bond pulled from him to feed her, as if her strength was borrowed from his life. The princess noticed too, her eyes softening as she looked at him. For the first time she felt guilt. She had been born to rule, to command, to take, but now, in this strange bond, she realized her survival was stealing from him. She touched his arm, her voice low in her alien tongue, a whisper he did not understand. But her eyes told him enough. She was asking if he regretted saving her, if he hated what she had become. The warrior shook his head slowly. His lips pressed tight, he could not explain it. But even in his weakness, he did not regret it, because each time she stood, each time she fought, he saw hope, not just for her, not just for himself, but for something larger, something beyond the war. But the galaxy did not sleep. The hunt grew louder. Soldiers of both races tightened their net. Whispers of the princess's survival had spread. Both armies now searched with desperation, and each time they drew close, the princess's power stirred, guiding them through shadows, Shielding them from capture, it was not escape. It was survival through something unnatural, something terrifying. One night, as they rested in the hollow of a broken cruiser, the warrior collapsed, his body shaking. His strength nearly gone, the bond had drained him too far. His eyes heavy, his voice faint, he thought it might be the end. The princess knelt beside him, panic in her glowing eyes. She pressed her hands against his chest, her veins shining bright, and in that moment, something impossible happened again. Her blood mixed with his, flowed back, her power reversed, and for the first time, she healed him. His breath returned, his wounds faded, his strength crawled back into his bones. He gasped as if pulled from the edge of death. And when he opened his eyes, she was staring at him, her lips trembling, her body shaking from the effort. In that instant, he realized the truth. The bond was not one way anymore. It was not just him saving her. It was her saving him too. Their lives now fed each other, a cycle that no empire, no science, no god could explain. The princess sat back, her face pale, but her eyes burned brighter than ever. She understood now. This power was not hers alone, it was theirs. It was born of their shared blood, of their shared will to live. The warrior sat up slowly, his body trembling, his eyes locked on hers, and for the first time, neither felt like prey. Neither felt like a victim. They felt like something else, something new. Outside, in the dark of space, fleets prepared. Armies sharpened blades, orders spread. The hunt was not over. It was only growing, but inside the wreckage, two enemies sat together, bound by blood, bound by power, and both knew the truth. The galaxy would never understand them. The galaxy would never forgive them. And yet, as the stars burned cold, they also knew another truth. Their story had only just begun, and the powers awakening inside them would decide the fate of more than just themselves. It would decide the fate of two worlds. The betrayal. The warrior and the princess had survived many hunts. They had escaped patrols, broken through traps and hidden in ruins. Yet survival was not victory. Their strength was fading. Their bond grew heavier with every passing hour, and both knew they could not run forever. They needed help. They needed allies, and in the shadows of war, the warrior believed he had found one. Through hidden signals, through coded messages left in wreckage, he reached out to an old comrade, a soldier who once fought by his side, a man he trusted with his life, a man who had saved him in battle long ago. When the comrade arrived, it was in secret, no banners, no weapons raised, only a single ship hidden in the dust of the stars. The warrior felt relief. For the first time since the bond began, he thought they might find safety. The princess, however, was not convinced. Her silver eyes narrowed, her body tense. She whispered words he could not understand, but the bond carried her warning, her distrust, her fear. The comrade greeted him warmly, clasping his arm. Smiling with the same face, the warrior remembered. "You are alive," he said. Against all odds. His voice carried the weight of friendship, but also the edge of curiosity. His eyes lingered too long on the princess. His questions too sharp. The warrior explained little, only that she was alive because of him, only that they were bound. But even as he spoke, he felt his comrade's eyes judging, measuring, calculating. The princess stood silent, her glow faint but her gaze cold. She felt the tension, she felt the crack forming, and though she said nothing, the warrior could sense her mistrust pressing against his chest. The bond whispering her unease, he ignored it. He wanted to believe in loyalty. He wanted to believe in friendship. For a time it seemed safe. The comrade's ship gave them shelter, food, air, a chance to breathe. The warrior rested. The princess closed her eyes. Yet even in that calm, something felt wrong. The silence was too heavy, the walls too thin. When night fell, the truth revealed itself. The comrade did not sleep. Instead, he sent signals into the dark. Hidden transmissions carrying coordinates, carrying warnings, carrying betrayal. The princess woke first, her bond burning in her veins. She felt danger before it came. Her silver eyes snapping open, she grabbed the warrior's arm, dragging him awake. He saw her fear, and in that instant he understood. His comrade had sold them before he could act. The ship shook. Alarms blared outside, the stars burned with the lights of war. Human ships surrounding them. Alien ships closing from the other side. Both fleets converging on the same point. Both hunting the same prey. The comrade's voice was calm, almost sorrowful. "I am sorry, brother," he said. "But this is bigger than us. Bigger than loyalty. She is too dangerous. They will never let her live, and if you stand with her, They will never let you live either. The warrior's heart cracked. His fists clenched, betrayal cut deeper than any blade. He had trusted, he had believed, and now he was trapped. The princess stepped forward, her eyes blazing, her voice sharp in her alien tongue. The bond carried her rage into the warrior's chest, and for the first time he felt her fury as his own. The comrade raised his weapon, hesitation in his eyes torn between memory and duty. But before he could fire, the princess moved, her power flaring like fire. The walls of the ship shuddered, sparks bursting, lights dying. The warrior tackled his comrade, their blades clashing. Old friends turned enemies, the fight brutal fast, filled with pain and memory. Every strike reminded him of battles they once fought together. Every block reminded him of loyalty now shattered. The princess stood behind, her glow flooding the chamber, shielding the warrior from enemy fire as human soldiers stormed the ship, her power bending energy, breaking weapons. But each flare of her strength pulled at him, draining him, weakening him. The fight ended with blood, the comrade falling, his voice faint, his eyes full of regret. "I tried to save you," he whispered, "but you chose her." And with those words, his life faded. The warrior stood trembling, his blade dripping, his chest heavy with grief. He had lost a brother, not to war but to betrayal. There was no time for mourning. The ship was burning. Soldiers stormed in, weapons raised. Alien voices shouted from the other side. Both armies now inside, ready to take the princess. Ready to kill the warrior, the princess reached for him, her silver eyes glowing brighter than ever. Her hand pressed to his chest and the bond flared, their hearts pounding together. Their lives won. The warrior's strength returned, her power surged. And together they cut through the chaos, fighting side by side, their bond no longer secret, no longer silent, but blazing like fire for all to see. They escaped through fire and smoke, the ship crumbling, the stars exploding with battle outside, fleeing into the ruins once more, hunted by all behind them. Fleets clashed, soldiers shouted, but one truth spread faster than fire, faster than war. The princess had survived. The princess had changed, and the human who saved her stood at her side. The betrayal had cost him everything, his brother, his trust, his safety, but it had also proven a truth he could not deny. There was no going back, no peace, no home. Not anymore, only the bond, only survival, only the path ahead. And though the galaxy called them traitors, monsters, abominations, they walked forward together, stronger than before. Because betrayal had not broken them, betrayal had forged them, and the storm that waited in the stars would find them ready. The last stand, the galaxy had closed its jaws. Fleets spread across the stars, human ships hunting with cold silence, alien war cruisers burning with rage, and in the middle of this storm, the warrior and the princess stood with nowhere left to run. Their bond had carried them through betrayal, through traps, through fire. But now the hunt had reached its end. Every path blocked, every shadow watched, every hiding place burned. They had taken shelter inside the broken skeleton of a dreadnought, its vast halls torn open, its steel ribs reaching into space like the bones of a giant. Here they waited, here they prepared, because both knew the truth. Escape was no longer possible. This would be their stand, their last fight. And whether they lived or died, the galaxy would remember. The warrior checked his blade, cracked but sharp enough. His armor dented, his body weak, yet his eyes burned steady. He had nothing left but the bond, nothing left but her. The princess stood beside him, her silver eyes glowing like twin stars, her veins alive with fire, her body trembling with power she still did not fully control. But she did not hide anymore. She did not fear anymore. She was not only a princess now, she was something else, something new outside. The sound of engines roared. The dreadnought shook as ships locked weapons, the air heavy with the promise of death. The warrior placed his hand on the wall, listening, counting the steps, the voices, the soldiers moving closer. Human commands shouted. Alien orders screamed, both sides ready to crush them. Both sides blind to the truth of what they were about to face. The princess reached for his arm, her touch warm, her glow softening. The bond surged between them, their hearts beating as one, their breath one, their lives one. She looked at him, her lips moving in words he could not understand, but the meaning carried through the bond. "We stand together. Until the end." The warrior nodded, his jaw set, his voice steady though death pressed close. "Together," he whispered. The first wave came, human soldiers storming the broken halls, rifles blazing, voices roaring. The warrior leapt forward, his blade a flash of steel, cutting through shadows. His body fast though his strength was fading, the princess followed, her hand raised. Light bursting from her veins, energy bending around her, bullets dissolving in the air, fire twisting into sparks that burned out before touching them. The second wave came, alien soldiers dropping from above, their black armor shining, their blades humming with deadly power. They moved fast, precise, their voices sharp. The princess stepped into their path, her silver eyes flaring. The ground shuddered beneath her. Steel cracked, and with a sweep of her arm, the aliens were thrown back, crashing against walls. Their weapons breaking like glass, but each use of her power pulled at the bond. The warrior felt his chest tighten, his vision blur, his blood burn, as if her strength was drawn from his very soul. He staggered, his knees almost giving way, but the princess caught him, her hands glowing, pouring her strength back into him. For a moment they stood locked, energy flowing between them like fire and water, their bond shifting, feeding, healing, burning. The battle raged on, more soldiers came, more ships fired into the wreckage. The dreadnought groaned as steel broke, fire rising, the last shelter collapsing around them. The warrior and princess stood back to back, surrounded, hunted, every weapon pointed at them, every voice demanding their end. The human commander shouted, "Kill the alien! Spare the human if possible!" The alien general roared, "Kill the human, bring the princess's body!" Their voices clashed. Their soldiers raised weapons, and for one heartbeat the war froze, all eyes on the two standing in the center. The princess looked at the warrior, her silver eyes burning. The bond flared, and in that moment she made her choice. She would not bow. She would not die. She would not let him fall. Her glow burst into brilliance, light flooding the dreadnought. Shadows burned away. Weapons shattered in hands. Soldiers cried out as their strength collapsed. The warrior lifted his blade, his roar cutting through the storm. Together they struck, together they defied. The dreadnought shook as if the stars themselves trembled. Steel ripping, fire consuming. Soldiers scattering in panic, but power came with cost. The warrior collapsed, his body drained, blood dripping from his lips, his chest heavy, the bond pulling him toward the edge of death. The princess fell beside him, tears glowing silver in her eyes. Her power fading, her strength gone, yet she would not let him go. She pressed her hands against his chest, her blood flowing back into his. Her life feeding his. "Live," she whispered, the bond carrying her plea. "Live with me," the warrior gasped, breath returning, his eyes opening, and when he looked at her, he saw not a princess, not an alien, but a soul bound to his own. They rose together once more, weak but unbroken, and as the flames of the dreadnought collapsed around them, the soldiers who had come to hunt them froze. None dared move, none dared fire. For what they had seen was no longer war. It was something beyond. The last stand was not their death. The last stand was their beginning. Two enemies bound by blood, standing against a galaxy, stronger together than apart. And in the silence that followed, the galaxy realized a terrible truth. The hunted had become the storm, and the storm was only just beginning. What followed defied all logic. The dreadnought burned in silence, its broken frame drifting like a wounded beast among the stars. Inside its shattered halls, fire still glowed, smoke curled. Soldiers lay scattered, some alive, some gone, none willing to rise again. And in the center of this ruin stood the human warrior and the alien princess, their bodies weak, their armor broken, their breaths heavy, yet their eyes still burning, alive when no logic said they should be. The human commander stared in disbelief, his soldiers frozen, their weapons lowered. The alien general glared with hatred, his warriors trembling in fear. Both armies had seen the same truth. They had watched two enemies, sworn to kill each other, stand side by side, their bond stronger than weapons, their power greater than fleets, and now none dared move, none dared speak because they all knew what they had seen could not be undone. The warrior stood with his blade hanging low, his body trembling, but his spirit unbroken. His eyes never leaving the princess stood tall, though her veins glowed faint with fading power. Her silver eyes steady, her face no longer that of a dying royal, but of something greater, something untouchable. Together they breathed as one, their hearts beating the same rhythm, their blood shared, their lives joined. Then the silence broke, the commander shouted. The soldiers raised their weapons again, fear returning, anger rising. But before a single shot was fired, something greater happened. The bond between the warrior and the princess pulsed, light flaring from their bodies. Not fire, not energy, but something pure, something unseen before. It spread like a wave across the hall, Touching human and alien alike, the soldiers staggered. Some dropped weapons. Some cried out because for one heartbeat, they felt it too. The bond, the unity, the impossible connection. The human commander fell to his knees, whispering in shock. "This cannot be." The alien general turned pale, his voice shaking. "This is forbidden." But it was real, undeniable. The proof burned before their eyes. The warrior looked at his enemies, his voice low but steady. "You can kill us," he said, "but you cannot erase what has been born." The princess stepped beside him, her voice sharp, her alien tongue carrying like thunder. Though they could not understand her words, the meaning was clear. She was not prey, not traitor, not weapon. She was something new, something beyond empire, beyond hatred. The soldiers hesitated, fear holding them back, confusion breaking their courage, because none of their laws, none of their orders, none of their training prepared them for this. And in that hesitation, the warrior and the princess moved, not to fight, not to kill, but to leave, stepping through fire and shadow, walking past armies too stunned to stop them. No bullet fired, no blade raised. The hunters had become witnesses. The prey had become legend. Outside, the stars stretched endless. Fleets hovered. Commanders shouted orders, but none dared strike. None dared move, because the sight of two bound souls walking through fire had already spread through their ranks like a storm. Whispers rose faster than commands. Whispers that the princess lived. Whispers that she was changed. Whispers that a human warrior had given his blood, and what followed defied all logic. As they vanished into the endless ruins of war, the galaxy trembled. Leaders gathered in secret halls. Scientists argued in cold chambers. Priests prayed to forgotten gods, all asking the same question. What were they now, miracle or curse, saviors or monsters? Proof of unity or weapons of destruction? The warrior and the princess did not know either. They only knew their bond was real. Their blood was shared. Their lives were one, and as they walked together into the unknown, they carried not only survival, but something heavier, something greater. They carried the weight of a future that neither humans nor aliens could control. On distant worlds, stories began to spread. Not of battles, not of victories, but of a warrior and a princess who should have been enemies, yet stood as one. Some called it blasphemy. Some called it hope. Some called it the beginning of the end. But all agreed on one truth: the war would never be the same. The galaxy would never be the same. The warrior looked at the princess as they walked through the ruins. His voice soft, "We should have died." The princess looked back, her silver eyes glowing faint in the dark, her voice quiet, carrying through the bond. "Yes, but we lived." And in that simple truth, they both knew their journey was not over. It was only beginning. The stars burned cold. Fleets waited in silence. Leaders planned their next moves, but none of them could change what had already happened. None of them could erase the bond. A human warrior had given his blood to a dying alien princess, and what followed defied all logic. And in the ages to come, when the galaxy spoke of war, when the galaxy spoke of hate, when the galaxy spoke of miracles, they would speak of them, the warrior and the princess, enemies by birth, bound by blood, remembered as the spark that changed everything.